They don't call anymore. Not a text. Not a single call in 43 days. I know the exact number because I keep a tally on the back of an old legal pad, the kind we use during depositions. My grandchildren used to fight over who got to sit next to me at Thanksgiving. Now their mother has to practically drag them here, and they barely make it through dessert before they're asking to leave. I'm 73 years old, and I've become the person everyone endures. My name is Robert Hollister. To the partners at the firm, I was Hollister. To my wife of 40 years, I was Bobby. To my grandchildren, they used to call me Grandpa Bob. They haven't called me anything in longer than I want to admit. I built a life that looked perfect from the outside. 23 years as senior partner at Feldman, Kerr & Hollister, one of the most respected law firms in Chicago. Evanston, 4-bedroom colonial house on a corner lot with mature oaks. A wife I loved for 40 years, Catherine. 3 kids who turned out better than I probably deserved. Season tickets to the Bears since 1998. I wore Ermenegildo Zegna suits and drove a 1994 Cadillac Fleetwood that sits in the garage now, gathering dust like everything else in my life. The bourbon came gradually. It wasn't a sudden fall, wasn't a scandal, wasn't a DUI or a lost case that shattered me in court. It was quieter than that. It was the kind of decline that nobody sees until it's already far too late. Catherine was the one who truly knew me. She could tell when a deposition had gone badly by the way I poured my drink that evening. If it was 3 fingers instead of 2, something had rattled me deeply. She'd put her hand on my shoulder and ask about it, and we'd talk for hours. She understood why the law sometimes made me feel like I was suffocating, why losing a case felt like a personal failure, even when I knew intellectually that you can't win them all. She died 11 years ago, pancreatic cancer, 20 months from diagnosis to the funeral. I remember the morning they told us it was terminal. We were in her oncologist's office, and I was wearing a charcoal suit and a red tie. And I thought about how that detail would normally have made her smile. She had strong opinions about my ties, but she didn't say anything that day. She just held my hand while Dr. Patel spoke about comfort care and hospice. I didn't drink much during those 20 months. I was too busy being present, or at least that's how I remember it. I was there for every appointment, every treatment, every moment she decided she wanted company instead of solitude. But I wasn't drinking because I was strong or noble. I was just too busy trying to hold her hand while she was slipping away. The drinking came after she was gone. At first it was just bourbon, Maker's Mark, a glass each night to help me sleep. Perfectly reasonable. Doctors practically recommended a drink a day for a man my age. But I wasn't doing this to follow medical advice. I was doing it because the silence of the house was suffocating, because Catherine's reading glasses were still sitting on the nightstand, because the kitchen smelled like the ginger tea she'd gotten addicted to during chemo, and I couldn't bring myself to open the windows. By the second year, it was a bottle a week. By the fifth year, it was more than that. I retired early. Everyone thought it was because I had enough money and wanted to enjoy myself. That was partly true. Mostly, it was because I was starting to shake during depositions, because I'd have a glass before my morning shower, because the thought of sitting through a partner meeting made me want to crawl out of my skin. The crystal decanter sits on my sideboard right now. It's empty. It's been empty for 3 months, but I haven't thrown it away, and I haven't refilled it. It was Catherine's. She gave it to me for our 35th anniversary. She had it engraved, "To Bobby, with 40 more years of everything." We didn't get those 40 years. We didn't even get the 40 we'd already had. I used to fill that decanter every few days. It was my way of telling myself that I was a man of measured habits, a man who drank from a beautiful vessel, a man with taste and control. The decanter made it all feel civilized. It made the bourbon look like amber honey instead of what it really was. Looking back, that decanter was probably the most important lie I ever told myself. My daughter Jennifer, she tried for a long while. She'd show up on Sundays with the kids. Tommy was 12, maybe 13 then. Sophia was 8. Michael was 4. They'd run up the driveway screaming, "Grandpa Bob! Grandpa Bob!" and I'd hear them coming, and I'd have to make sure I didn't smell like the thing I'd been drinking that morning. I'd pop a mint, sometimes a handful of mints. I'd rinse my mouth with water. I'd tell myself that today would be different, that today I'd be the grandfather they deserved. And for the first 30 minutes I would be. I'd get down on the floor and play with Michael's action figures. I'd ask Sophia about school, and I'd actually listen to her answers instead of thinking about when they'd leave so I could have a drink. I'd tell Tommy stories about the Bears, about cases I'd won, about the time I met Walter Payton at a restaurant in downtown Chicago, and he actually remembered shaking my hand. But then something would happen. Jennifer would mention that I'd missed Tommy's soccer game, or she'd notice that I'd mixed up a detail from a story I'd told the week before, or I'd stand up too quickly and have to hold on to the couch. Or she'd find a bottle that I'd hidden in the basement behind the paint cans, and we'd have a fight that the kids could hear from the living room. By the time Tommy was 14, he stopped wanting to come. He'd text his mother that he had soccer practice or homework, or he was sleeping at a friend's house. Sophia got quieter each visit. She'd sit on the couch with her phone and not make eye contact. Michael was old enough to understand that something was wrong with Grandpa, but not old enough to understand what. I remember once he asked me why I smelled like the cleaning cabinet, and Jennifer changed the subject immediately, and I felt something break in me that I don't think has ever healed. The visits got shorter, then less frequent, then conditional. Jennifer finally had to say it, sitting at my kitchen table on a Sunday morning, the coffee getting cold between us. "Dad, the kids are scared of you." Those 7 words. I could have built a case on the emotional impact of those 7 words. Instead, I just sat there, and I realized that she was right. Tommy didn't want to come because he was embarrassed by me. Sophia was quiet because I'd scared her one afternoon when I'd gotten angry, Not at her, not about her, just angry in general, and she'd run upstairs. Michael was confused and frightened by a grandfather who seemed like a different person each time he saw him. I stopped drinking for 6 weeks after that conversation. 6 weeks of sobriety that felt like drowning on land. I went to AA meetings at the VFW hall on Clark Street, the same hall where I'd been going for years, except suddenly I was actually paying attention. I stood up. My name is Robert and I'm an alcoholic. And everyone clapped, which is what they do. And I thought maybe this was the moment where I'd turn it around. But the meetings felt like confessions, like I was supposed to believe in something bigger than myself. Surrender to it. Let it carry me. I could argue my way through anything in a courtroom, but I couldn't argue my way through the 12 steps. By the 7th week, I'd poured myself a glass of bourbon, and by the 8th week, I was back to where I'd been, except worse, because now I knew how good it had felt to stop. I called Jennifer and told her I'd been sober for 6 weeks. I didn't tell her that part was a lie. I told her the kids could come over, that I was fixed, that everything was different now. She brought them on a Saturday afternoon, and I could see the hope in her face, the desperate, tired hope of someone who wants to believe. Her father has come back. We made it until dinner. We had hot dogs and potato salad on the back patio, the best meal I could manage. We were laughing. Michael was telling me about his little league team. I was actually present, and I felt this moment of clarity where I thought, this is what it's supposed to be like. Then my hand shook when I was clearing the plates, and a glass fell. And something about the way it fell made Tommy look at me with disappointment, like he'd been hoping I was different, and he just confirmed that I wasn't. I made an excuse and went inside. Jennifer took the kids home early. I sat at the kitchen table with that empty crystal decanter, and I poured myself 3 fingers of bourbon, and I drank it standing at the sink. That was 6 months ago. The last time Tommy came here was almost a year ago. He was 15. He came because Jennifer made him, because it was a birthday dinner. He didn't want to be here. Every atom of his body screamed that he wanted to be anywhere else. We ordered in from his favorite Italian place, and I tried to ask him about school, and he gave me single-word answers. And I realized that I barely knew my own grandson anymore. He asked to be excused before dessert. Jennifer let him go because she knew that if she forced him to stay, he'd resent both of us. I sat there and I watched him take his plate to the kitchen, and I realized that I'd lost him. Not to distance, not to time. I'd lost him to myself, to the choices I'd made, night after night, 3 fingers or 4 fingers, or the whole bottle. There's a particular flavor of regret that only comes at the end of your life. It's not the kind of regret you get for a bad case or a missed promotion. This is a different animal. This is the regret that comes when you understand that you had something precious, and you chose a bottle instead. And there's no amount of winning that can buy back the time. I was 43 when Catherine got sick. I had everything, and then I had nothing because I had nobody. The grandchildren were the only people left who could have looked at me and seen Bobby instead of Robert Hollister, the failed grandfather. I keep thinking about a 4th of July party we had in 1997. Our house was full of kids and spouses and neighbors, and Catherine had made her famous potato salad, and I was wearing an Uncle Sam hat, and Tommy, who must have been 5 or 6, came up to me and said, "Grandpa Bob, you're the best." Just like that. No reason. No context. Just a kid being a kid. And his grandpa meant everything in the world to him. I'd give anything to go back to that afternoon, to actually be there instead of thinking about whatever case I was working on, to understand that he was more important than any deposition, any verdict, any closing argument I'd ever make. But you don't get to go back. That's the thing nobody tells you when you're young and everything's ahead of you. You don't get to go back. You get one chance to be the person your grandchildren think you are, and I blew it. The most brutal part is that I'm not even an interesting drunk. I'm not the kind of man who got drunk and did terrible things. I just got quiet and hollow and sad. I'm not the kind of man who lost everything in some spectacular fashion. I just slowly disappeared while everybody was looking. I'm the kind of drunk that makes people feel pity mixed with disgust, which is probably worse than anything else. Jennifer called me 3 days ago. She wanted to tell me that Tommy made the varsity soccer team, that he's actually really good, that he's been talking about trying to get a scholarship to Northwestern. She thought I'd want to know. And I did want to know. I wept when she told me. But what I understood was that these are experiences I won't be part of. I won't get to go to his games. He won't want me there. I'm sober again now, 19 days. I'm keeping track on the same legal pad where I was counting the days since anyone called. 19 days, and it's just as hard as it was the last time. Maybe harder because I'm not young enough to believe that it will get easier. I sit in this house, Catherine's house really, though she's been gone for 11 years, and I think about all the people who used to want to be around me. The partners at the firm who'd come to my house for dinner parties, the neighbors who'd wave at me, the clients who'd ask for me specifically. They're all gone now, not because they died, but because I proved myself to be the kind of man who chooses a decanter over his family. The empty crystal decanter is still on my sideboard. Every day I look at it, and every day I think about filling it. Every day I don't. That's my victory, I guess. But it's hollow because the damage is already done. You can't unscare a child. You can't unlose a grandchild's respect. I don't have any profound wisdom to offer. I'm not the kind of person who gets to end his story with redemption. I'm not going to get my grandchildren back. I'm not going to walk Tommy down the aisle or hold his child. That's on me. That's the choice I made. One night at a time. What I can tell you is that the thing you think will help you survive loss is the same thing that will destroy everyone around you. What I can tell you is that the people you love aren't infinitely patient. What I can tell you is that by the time you understand what you've done, it's too late. And what I'm telling you, from this empty house in Evanston, on a Friday night when my grandchildren are somewhere in the city, living their lives without me, is that the only thing that might have saved me was understanding that my family needed me more than I needed to escape. But I didn't understand that. And now I'm 73, and I'm 19 days sober, and I'm entirely, completely alone. The bourbon is in a cabinet above the refrigerator. It's been there for 43 days, and I'm going to go to bed tonight without drinking it. And I'm going to do the same thing tomorrow night. Not because I have hope, not because I think things will be different, but because sometimes the only thing you have left is the ability to not make things worse. That has to be enough.